Hello everyone, welcome to episode 23 of Last Minute FPL. This is the Gameweek 23 podcast. Hi Vikas, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Back from your vacation, lot of travel. How does it feel to be back home?
Yeah, felt bad missing the last part, but really enjoyed your live stream. Pretty excited to do this one. It's been a while. Kind of out of the jet lag phase, so feeling better, but quite excited.
Yeah, and lot of decisions to make. Double game week coming up very soon. Assistant manager chip also being eligible next week. So definitely a lot of points to discuss. Let's dive right in. We'll start with last week's points, and I think we can keep copy pasting the same introduction to this section. The AI team finished first out of the three of us with 54 points last week. Decent green arrow, but up to 3.6k. I mean, this week was a bit of a low scoring one, but Chris Wood getting 12 points, definitely being the difference maker.
Yeah, he's been so consistent. I really envy everyone who went with Wood, including the AI. Trent coming pretty good as well, 11 points. Although some of the budget defenders are doing well, it's always good to see the premium assets coming in points because of the money spent on them.
Yeah, and the transfer that the team made last week was Saliba to Van Dijk because there was rumors that Saliba was injured, and it turned out to be true, and Van Dijk got a clean sheet immediately. So yet another transfer timing working out for the AI team.
Yeah, and Eze has been a fantastic piece of business for the AI team. It feels almost prescient that, well, the whole world was going for Sar, went for Eze, and Eze has been actually doing pretty well over the last few weeks.
Yeah, that's actually something we should give it credit for. Although I think it kind of lucked into it it picked Bruno and then Bruno got a red card and then it had to find an alternative. But yeah, 54 points, 3.6k, things looking good. Moving on to my team. I also got a green arrow, but this was a very topsy-turvy week. The week started off extremely well. I went from 690k to 500k in the world. And I thought, wow, I'm going to kick on. And then it just steadily kept getting worse. And I ended up with 654k. Trent was basically the only player who got double digit returns. But Bruno getting a goal was important. And Semenyo, again, I almost
It was
sold
a
him.
great job for you, right? Like Semenyo over the last few weeks. Surprising.
Yeah, I
He's been
almost sold him for Sar maybe 3 weeks ago, and since then Semenyo has returned every game. He got an assist, then he got a double-digit return and one more assist. Hall also got an assist, and Henderson making up for some early season keeper blunders with another clean sheet. So pretty happy about it. Disappointed that Solanke got injured just before his Leicester and West Ham and Ipswich games. But anyway, I mean, he was unpredictable. At the end of it, he got me 64 points from 13 games. So around 5 points per game, which I think is really good at his price.
yeah. Good rank. I mean, 600k is like it feels so good compared to the millions that we were at and
Yeah.
I'm still at.
Yeah, definitely been steady progression. And yeah, hopefully with the doubles and like the chip strategy season coming up with the blanks and the bench boost and all these other chips that we have, I hope there's only more progression. Okay, we'll go to your team now. Once again, with your three budget defenders all returning, I think this is the third week in a row or something of that happening. But overall, 45 points. You interestingly got the best captaincy haul of
God
all.
awful, honestly, god awful week. Like, I mean, objectively speaking, okay, it might be like average, but these are the weeks that I counted on doing really well. And 6-0 City with a Haaland goal, I just don't know what to do. I mean, at this point, I really want to get rid of him. I don't even want to speak about him. I've just blanked him out. I don't see Haaland in the screenshot anymore. I just see 12 points. It's a god awful week. But this is the end of my season. I think this week cemented the end of the season. Maybe when I get rid of him, I'll just copy paste and have the same team as everyone else. It'll help me, go past some of the dead teams who will be around my rank. But that's about it. It's over.
No, honestly, I mean, one thing for sure, like this week could have been insane for you because everyone had a low scoring week, and if Haaland had got even one more return, it would have made a pretty huge difference. But I don't think for 1 second that like it's done and dusted, because there is so much variety in chip strategy that's upcoming. Like the assistant manager chip itself is like a 3 week stretch where you can pick
I do have to
literally.
mention that I already wasted my triple captain on Mr. Haaland previously on the 3xG Southampton game. So I really don't have a leg up when it comes to chip season.
But I mean, you can go with a different strategy at least in terms of wildcard timing, free hit timing, and bench boost. You can go with something little less conventional and see where it takes you. Because at the end of the day, like if you don't make that jump into the top million, that's okay. You're not gonna really lose out on much.
The
But
problem
it's
is I don't know who to spend the money on either. Like I've been making teams removing Haaland and
you have too much money.
it's too much money. I don't know. I'm not interested in any other forwards besides Mr. Chris Wood. But Chris Wood sounds so boring, but maybe boring is the new fun. And I'm just gonna go with Chris Wood and get Bruno and like these guys who can just like it just feels boring but pretty safe with the penalties and just go with that flow.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if you ever actually get Bruno into your team, the amount you've spoken about him. But I think that, yeah, it's tough for you because your defense is already doing well and you don't necessarily want to upgrade them, but it's a chance to have fun with it. You can literally pick whoever you like without any pressure of like any particular expectation.
True.
Cool. Let's now look at our mini league. See if how things have changed there. AI team still sitting pretty strong on the top, but the gap is only 25 points now, and I think Conte Kante is like seriously catching up. There are a bunch of new players in the league, which is why you see so many red arrows for everyone else. But yeah, Alan Evans and Son of God are also kind of behind. But if you see the gap between first and fourth, it's already 70 points. So currently, probably just the first three are fighting for the title. Coming to our teams, I'm 17th out of 32. So as the players come, I'm still sitting right in the middle somehow. And you are third from bottom still. But if you look like around 30-40 points above you, you can easily jump to around 25th.
Very promising that, isn't it? But I'll take that.
Yeah, I mean, like at our ranks, like even for me, like if you look at our mini league now that the league is so popular and there are so many people, I think that the standards have changed. We can't look to win such mini leagues. At least we have a representative in the form of the AI team that's challenging for the title.
Yeah, all in on the AI team.
Yeah, we should definitely do some kind of a watch along in Gameweek 38 if Conte Kante versus AI team goes down to the wire. We should probably stream Gameweek 38 and see how the league table plays out.
Yeah, I'd be in for that.
Cool. Let's move on now to last week's games. Some really interesting games. Maybe I can get started with the least interesting one because I saw the Man United Brighton game. Yeah, I think I'll actually talk about the Brentford Liverpool game at the same time because I watched both those games and there was a clear distinction between the teams which makes Liverpool world class. The Brentford Liverpool game was a very open game, like a lot of chances at both ends. Brentford also were making inroads into Liverpool's defense, but the individual brilliance of players like Van Dijk and Konate and even Trent in this game, they are just unstoppable sometimes. They just, like Konate especially made a couple of really important last ditch challenges. Van Dijk made a last ditch block. They track back really well and you just know they're going to win that one-on-one with a player. And that's exactly what's missing with United. Like they're so porous at the back that these slightly dangerous moments become very dangerous ones. And Onana spilled the ball once to concede a goal. So it's like instead of optimizing your instead of making the big chances small chances and the small chances no chances, United do the opposite, which I guess is just bad defending, but it's not pretty watching. In attack, they were actually pretty nice to watch. Even in the Europa League game, they created a lot of chances, and Bruno once again looked very good. He had in both games, he scored a goal in both games. Once again, showing importance of penalty takers. But overall, I wouldn't go with any United defender if anyone's crazy and thinking of that. But attack, I think Bruno and Ahmad are still looking decent options.
Hmm. Yeah. I could not watch too many games because I was traveling this weekend, but I did, unfortunately, like just before leaving, while I was saying bye to like a lot of people, I did play the City Ipswich game because it was going on just before it was leaving, which was also taking away time, from spending with others. But that's my life this season. Um, yeah, very disappointing. I think City looked good. I was hoping I just played it on the kind of side, waiting for eruption for goals, and I would get happy, and then I'd look at who scored it and be like, damn. And that is just like a consistent pattern in that game. Foden again coming away with 2 goals and like an assist. I think he's been on fire. Like if someone went with Foden just for Bruno replacing Bruno on his red card, I think great move. Won a lot of points there. And even just to cover Haaland, he's just absolutely obliterated Haaland. Um,
Yeah, or even
I think,
Saka replacements, right? Like at that price point when Saka
yeah,
was injured, Foden had good fixtures, but people weren't sure if he'd perform.
yeah. I mean, for whatever the little that I saw, he was in the box a lot, and it's been similar story in the previous games. He's looks good. He looks really good, not just in the points, but where he's taking up spaces. Um, yeah, Haaland's finished. I think a goal is not enough. I think that's very clear. Like it's not like he's doing badly. A goal a game is fine, but a goal a game for a forward, you get maybe 6 points, 7 points, 8 points max. Not doesn't justify 15 million. So
Yeah,
it's
and I
an
think
experiment which has run.
yeah,
Keep Haaland for easy fixtures, tough fixtures, see how things go. And I think as much as I've tried to optimize my team to kind of have that budget defense, having Haaland at 15 million certainly doesn't seem optimal, even captaining him against some of these easier fixtures where he scores, because the
yeah.
ceiling, unless he keeps getting these hat tricks, which is possible, but I mean, you can't expect a player to get hat trick very often. It just weakens the team overall. Like I wouldn't have an Enzo or a Sar. I can just upgrade them so much more.
Yeah, I think the early season overperformance set us up with very high expectations for him. Because overall, he's averaging around 1 xg per game and around 1 goal per game, which is what you'd expect from him. But at that price, it's just not working out because there are so many players who are also scoring well.
Yeah, I expected a hat trick in this game. Like, especially 6-0, I expected a Haaland hat trick, and that would have been a good send off. Like, it would have still been a failure.
Yeah.
Owning Haaland for so long is still a failure. But a hat trick in this game is not a wild expectation to have, and there would have been
Yeah.
a good send off for Haaland. So, getting 1 goal was very disappointing, but it's what it is. I can't, can't expect players to score hat tricks. I guess with Haaland, you can't expect him to score hat tricks beyond the first 6 weeks of a game, of a season.
He was also subbed early. I think if he had played that last half an hour, he would have at least got another return. Because he already got 1.33 xgi in just, I think he played 60 minutes, if I'm not wrong. So, yeah, very unlucky there because the scoreline was already high and it was a chance for Pep to rest him.
No, it makes sense to take him off because they don't have any other strikers. Been playing week after week after week. When you're winning so easily, it makes total sense to take him off.
And a big pat on the back to the AI team and the stats tables that we show as well for picking Foden, because in the last few weeks he's really risen through those tables and they were predicting him from 3-4 weeks ago as well. So that's a good call out. What about the Chelsea Wolves game? Palmer blanking. A lot of people. I mean, I would have captained Palmer if not for the injury doubt, and then he ended up starting anyway. But do you know if he looked threatening or?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first decent performance I think after a long time from Chelsea. I think it's a hold. Like keep Palmer. Again, I don't think money is an issue anymore with this game. Like most people don't own Haaland. Palmer is easily the best asset for Chelsea, so there's just keep him. I don't think there's any reason to get rid of him. Cucurella seems interesting to me because, I mean, he had this period where he was out, but he in some games takes up a really advanced position in the box. Varies from game to game because Maresca kind of changes things around. But if Chelsea do get back into a good rhythm and they start scoring goals, which was the strength earlier on in the season. He's a player that is interesting because he's not that expensive. I would add him to that budget defense option where you can get some goals and attacking returns, similar to the Robinson and Halls, and it's not too expensive at 5.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think Chelsea have been a bit unlucky with the clean sheets of late. Like every game they're somehow conceding. Um, but there's one more game I want to talk about, which is the Newcastle Bournemouth game. I caught that on I think Saturday morning it was. Great game. Like it was such an exciting game to watch because Bournemouth actually went toe to toe with Newcastle away from home, and they showed that they are capable of playing at the same level as any of these big teams because they create chances, play free flowing football, and they were pretty solid in defense as well. Isak had nothing. Like he didn't look threatening at all. Gordon had a couple of half chances. Semenyo looked amazing. Like he had so many. He was so involved in the attack. But the star of the show was Kluivert, and I think he definitely overperformed. He's currently overperforming his XG by a lot, but he scored a couple of really wonderful goals. Got a hat trick in the end and an assist. Big win for them. I think one of their best Premier League performances.
Yeah, they've been great this season. I think that's why even whenever Chelsea had that Bournemouth fixture, I always thought it's a tough one. Like Bournemouth play very good football. Kluivert is, I've not really ever considered him. It is always Semenyo, the lightest, but it's on penalties as well, right? Kluivert and
I'm not
for
sure
a good
about
team.
that. Yeah.
For a good team, I don't know. Probably should think of Bournemouth more. I just got rid of Semenyo because of the bad fixtures. 4-1 is very, very impressive.
Yeah, in attack, I think that you can expect them to create chances against anyone. The only thing with Kluivert before was I think we weren't sure if he would play 90 minutes. Now I think he should start given how he's playing. And yeah, I think that was probably the reason why he was flowing under the radar a bit. But yeah, he's showing up even in AI projections this week. So he's definitely made his way up, even according to the models, which try to be more reasonable. So I think he's a good option. Cool. Just before we go, one last shout out to Everton Spurs game. Everton taking a 3-0 lead. Like you can't predict with teams like this what's going to happen. Calvert-Lewin scoring, which is causing some temptations in with the double game week coming up. Some bad memories, but he had 0.95 xg, and it's Moyes. Moyes is back.
Go there. Why is anyone even thinking of going there to Calvert-Lewin? After everything that he's put us through, do you really want to go back? Is this like just wanting pain?
Yeah, I think it's just I don't understand either, but I think he's on a lot of managers' minds. But anyway, let's move on. Moving on to next game week's matches. I think again the standout fixture is Liverpool-Ipswich. 3.4 goals expected to be scored at Anfield. A 52% chance of clean sheet. Really one-sided game expected, and Wolves-Arsenal also I think is expected to be a little one-sided, and the Southampton-Newcastle also. I think Southampton
looks like a good game.
Yeah. Only issue is Southampton is away, and they've scored a few goals of late, but I can see Newcastle absolutely destroying them. They'll be raring to come back from the weekend defeat as well.
Bournemouth Forest also looks close. Jayden Wood against scores in that game. Just keep scoring every match.
Yeah, it's getting tiresome at this point. Yeah, I don't know what to say. He's defying stats and he's having a great season, probably in contention for Golden Boot. Yeah, probably his best season and in the Premier League ever. And also Spurs Leicester is another game that can be high scoring. Although now I don't know if anyone has Son because both Johnson and Solanke are injured.
For clean sheets, I think standout teams Liverpool, Arsenal this week.
Yeah,
easily by far.
Agreed. It just caught my eye that Fulham versus Man United. Fulham is comfortably projected to win 1.5 to 1.3. I didn't realize that things were like at least projections. You'd think that people think that United team is good, but apparently it's clearly not the case anymore.
Yeah, pretty sad, honestly. But
What do you
these
think
are,
about the City versus Chelsea game?
I think City will destroy Chelsea. There's no doubt. Um, Historically, we've had a bad record against them over the last few years, and they seem good. And Chelsea don't seem as good except for the Wolves game. So I do expect City to come away, if not a comfortable win, at least something like a 2-1 or something like that.
Okay. Are you planning to keep Haaland for this week?
Yeah, because I do want to get to the 5 transfers. That feels nice. 1-4. Next week will give me 5, and then finally I can. It's like a mini wildcard basically with 5 transfers.
I would have never thought that you'd be the one to get to 5 free transfers first.
Yeah, and it's the assistant manager chip as well that I may consider next week. So
Makes sense.
perfect time to unlock the funds.
Makes sense. We'll just take a quick look at this view also that Rob put up on his X account this week with the projected goals and clean sheet odds for this particular game week. So you want to own the players from the teams on the top right and not the players from the bottom left. So Liverpool clearly head and shoulders ahead of everyone else. But also I think Arsenal defenders, Newcastle and Spurs attackers are also players to consider. Cool.
Yeah.
Anything to add?
No, I think you've covered it.
Cool. And yeah, let's take a quick look at the fixture ticker as well. I think clear standout is Liverpool. Double game week coming up, but also the next 4 games on paper are I mean, if game week 24, I know the fixtures are a little tricky both away, but it's a double. And then the other 2 games are Ipswich and Wolves at home. So I think time to load up on Liverpool players. Everton also have a double. Definitely Liverpool is a tough game, but it kind of softens the blow that they have Leicester at home in the other game. So cheaper options, maybe someone like a Pickford or a Mikalenko, or if you're brave, Calvert-Lewin, brave or stupid are options. Apart from that, Brentford are back on the menu. So Mbuemo back in people's teams, maybe after the double game week, because I think the transfers will currently maybe be focused on those players, but also Vissa is a good option. Anything else that stands out to you?
Yeah, it's these 3. I think Vissa, I really want to get on Vissa because at one point he was just matching Haaland in terms of expect, like early on in the season when the fixtures were good. Perfect time, to get rid of Haaland for the new Haaland. Sounds appealing to me. So yeah, he's in my consideration along with Forest, because Forest shows. I mean, the fixtures don't look great, but they're just defying expectations, like you said. So I'm just thinking to myself, which point should you just go for them? Like irrespective of the fixtures, they're third in the table. Just go for players like Wood, or even on the defense, go with Sells for keeper, or Aina. So Forest also top of mind because of how well they're doing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like, these fixtures are a little tricky, but I think the players can still do well. I think same thing with Newcastle. After this Southampton game, the fixtures do toughen up, and they may even blank in game week 29. So maybe if you're tripled up on Newcastle, I think I would still keep Isak, but maybe you can consider moving Gordon out and maybe Hall as well after the easy fixtures.
I do want to call out that Man City look really bad. Fixture list looks, I mean, even assuming that they're in good form, does look bad, the fixture list. Chelsea is okay, but still not great if, City revert back to the form they were showing prior to maybe the Ipswich game.
Yeah,
Next week, Arsenal, Newcastle, Liverpool, Tottenham, I think their Forest after that looks pretty dire. So Foden, I wouldn't get him. I wouldn't get Foden in at this point.
Yeah, I think the time has passed for him. And also, I mean, they lost 4-2 to PSG in the Champions League while they went from 2-0 up and lost 4-2. And now they're outside the top 24. So there's 36 teams and they're not even in the top 2/3. So they have to win their last game to qualify, which they probably will, but it's a weird situation. I don't think they're fully out of the woods yet in terms of their cursed season. And the next few games here will, I think at least Arsenal and Liverpool will start as favourites against them, for sure.
Even Newcastle, I think. Maybe the Tottenham one is where, but Tottenham do well against City, so who knows? They could get much worse for them essentially over the next 4 to 5.
Yeah, and Tottenham, yes, like you said, they beat City 4-0, and then they lost all the games before that and after that. Um, and yeah, Arsenal is away, so I thought Arsenal be favourites. Liverpool, I think, even at Etihad, might start as favourites. But at least the Chelsea and Newcastle games are at home, so maybe you can expect City to put in a performance. Okay, let's now move on to our team attacking data. We thought we'd show it to you in a visual form so that the information is clearly captured. So what you're looking at is goals on the x-axis and xg on the y-axis, both per 90. So if and the line, the diagonal line that you see is basically the x equals y line. So all the teams that are above the line are basically underperforming, and the teams below it are overperforming. So Liverpool bang on the line and clearly the best team in terms of attack. And then if you look at XG, Chelsea and Bournemouth also have very high XG. The difference being that Chelsea have converted to their XG potential, while Bournemouth are still quite underperforming their XG. And then you have teams like City, Arsenal, Newcastle, Spurs, all in similar XG range with slightly different conversions. And Brentford also have looked like they're catching that group. So in terms of attack, I would probably restrict myself to these teams. It's sad to see that Palace is actually way behind. So for people like who own Eze and Sarr, it looks like as a team they're not super attacking, and as a Bruno owner also, this is not making for pretty reading.
Yeah. City, United, and Palace being there. Just discussing about getting Bruno and owning Sarr, that's definitely not encouraging. Calvert-Lewin, people with Calvert-Lewin in their mind should also make a note of where Everton are in this line. There's no point complaining later on of cursing Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, it looks like they're even worse than Southampton, which is saying something. Cool. Okay, let's look at our look at the defensive data now. Once again, like, don't be fooled. Like, Southampton aren't the best defense. This is XG conceded in y-axis and goals conceded in x-axis. So being on the bottom left means you're the most stingy defense. And Liverpool, again, stingiest. Arsenal right behind them, and Forest doing exceptionally well both in XG conceded and goals conceded. And it looks like Fulham and Aston Villa are a bit unlucky with the amount of goals they've conceded, but they're defensively decent. And there's a huge cluster of teams. Interestingly, Everton is there. So maybe not Calvert-Lewin, but people like Pickford and Mykolenko are decent options with the Leicester game. And there's a bunch of teams: Bournemouth, Chelsea, Palace, City, Brighton. Here as well, United is a little bit further away from that chasing pack. And Spurs also.
Yeah, and Spurs probably show up more closer to the middle than the end because of their good start. They were pretty bad over the last few weeks. So I think Spurs not a bad team to target from an attacking perspective, even though they show middle here. Southampton clearly the whipping boys here in terms of the team to target. Wouldn't really mind going Isak over Salah as captaincy, especially if you're looking for something different than what pretty much everyone's going to go Salah for this game.
Yeah, I think I would only do it if you have absolutely nothing to lose, because Ipswich at home can be a really disastrous scoreline. Like, I mean, it could also be like what happened with Haaland, but it's not a risk I'm comfortable taking. Yeah. Especially with Southampton being the away game and this being at Anfield.
Agreed. I think if you're playing logically, Salah captaincy makes the most sense.
Cool. Let's move on. We look at the position-wise analysis now. So on the left, we have the AI projections. And interestingly, we looked at City's tough games. Haaland doesn't feature in the top 10 of the forwards for the first time ever, I think, in the history of this AI projections. Darwin and Gakpo feature heavily behind Isak because of the double game week that's coming. But there's a bunch of mid-priced options like Wissa, Cunha, Pedro, Raul. and slightly higher price like Watkins and Havertz, all expected to do better than Haaland. Interestingly, Wood is in 10th. He's dropped down a bit. Maybe it's because of some tricky fixtures in the horizon. But Visa is the one that I think is an interesting one here. Like you pointed out earlier, he's just behind the double game week players and Isak.
Yeah, I think it's a Wood and Visa are very different in terms of data. Visa's data is great. Wood's data is pretty much almost always not great. So I don't know how those factor into projections, but Wood is very consistent irrespective of his data. It's one of those players that, from a predictive perspective, based on underlying data, he may not show up high, even if there's easy, tough. Maybe still fixtures are a factor, but still doesn't show up high. But it still scored points. Visa historically has scored points, even though the data is good. And that's where I'm leaning towards Visa, because I always expect Wood to kind of revert back to the underlying data, whereas Visa has good data and has kind of matches that whenever the fixtures are good.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, Wood has also been projected highly by this AI team before. Like, in fact, Wood has been its darling boy. So definitely takes into account the returns and the conversion rates. But I think it's just a matter of a lot of forward players having decent fixtures. Players like Watkins and Pedro are just slightly being projected more than Wood. If you look at the total EV, there's not much between number 6 and 10, less than 1 point in total. But there is a clear gap between Wood and Visa, according to the AI team. I think it's the data and the fixtures, as you said.
In the chart, that the really nice chart you have on the right side, look at the difference between the line and where Wood is. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. It's really, this type of, I think Son previous season is kind of similar, very clinical, but Wood is absolutely destroying his data, like in terms of what he's projecting versus what he's getting. These are much closer to that line. And I don't know, for me, I still always prefer leaning towards these players who are closer to their mean.
Yeah, I think it's more sustainable for sure. But interestingly, almost all players are looks like they're overperforming their XG except Erling Haaland. I think he slightly went below mean by the end of the season. I think the reason for that is probably the existence of FPL assists, because you get a return even though in reality that may not be considered an assist, like things like deflections and other things like that. But I think the interesting thing on the graph is that look where Isak has ended up. He didn't have a great start to the season, and he's also someone who's overperforming, but he's also getting more than 0.8 XGI per 90. He's basically Erling Haaland, who's half the price.
Incredible where Isak is. I mean, the two players who are standouts here are Haaland and Isak for different reasons. One, just accumulating pure XGI, and the other just accumulating pure points. Incredible. Given that Isak, the price he is, he's the must-own forward in the game.
Yeah, and the other forward who I was surprised to see is Watkins. He's not been getting. It seems like he's not been getting into a lot of teams, but it looks like he's getting.
I think the problem is again on the chart. Duran is pretty close by with great performance. That's the risk here with Watkins. But yeah, if either Watkins or Duran maintains a run of games and it's clearly first choice, and we are comfortable with picking one of them, then both are great choices for Villa.
But interestingly, what this chart tells me is that there are a lot of forward options who are getting more than half a return per game. So 1 return in 2 games. And what that means is you just need to look at whether they're nailed on and whether they're expected to play. And you can expect to get a good return from even cheap forwards.
Agree. Yeah. I think there are good forward options. It's the difficulty here is just figuring out that second and third after Isak, because there are a ton of different options. I think we just pretty much go with the 90-minute player and those who have good fixtures, pretty much. Just like Cunha did really well, even though he didn't have good data because of really great fixtures. So I think the play that I've been looking into at least is just purely fixtures. Who has good fixtures get the nailed on player from that team.
Yeah, I think definitely fixtures over form for sure. One player who doesn't feature on this list is Calvert-Lewin. I think I had to remove him because he was a little off the chart, and I had to adjust the scale a bit. I think he had around 0.3 returns per game, and his XG was slightly higher. But yeah, one more reason to probably not go for him. Okay, let's move on to midfielders now. And interesting thing in the midfielders table, if you look at AI projections first, Salah's projected to score 9 points this week and 9 points against Wolves, and I've never seen the AI team project such a high score line. I think his recent form has been so high that he crossed the 8 barrier a few weeks ago, and now he's crossed the 9 barrier. So I think the AI team is just if you remember, it was picking Palmer over Salah at the start of the season. So yeah, I think his numbers are just off the charts.
Insane. Over the next 4 weeks, the projection is 35 points almost for Salah.
And to be honest, this is the EV, so it's like there is a DK on the later weeks. So he has a double game week coming up where he's projected to score 16 points. If you add up the next 4 weeks raw numbers, it's actually more like 43, 44 points. But we weight the later game weeks by a DK factor just to account for any unforeseen circumstances. And apart from Salah, this table is basically made up of all Liverpool midfielders. Diaz, Jota, Szoboszlai and McAllister all featuring. And the informed players like Palmer, Gordon, Foden, Kluivert and Mbeumo. I think, yeah, I'm personally not going to take the risk of going with someone like Diaz or Jota. Jota is anyway injured, and I think in midfield there are better options for Liverpool. I would personally go with Gakpo maybe if you want a second Liverpool attacker, or like maybe someone like a McAllister or Szoboszlai if you want security of stats.
Yeah, for Liverpool, I was actually thinking maybe it's better to go double defense with one attacker, Trent and maybe like an Alisson or Van Dijk, just given their fixtures. But I don't know. Are you planning your triple captaincy, Nati?
Yeah, I'll probably play my triple captain on Salah, unless Spurs fixture, like unless there's 2 double game weeks coming up for some reason, then I'll try thinking of assistant manager. But my dilemma is basically I have Dominic Solanke who's injured, and I can move him on to Gakpo and play that dice because it could potentially be high scoring. And having a forward who has Ipswich at home, Wolves at home, and a double game week where, even if he gets 30 minutes off the bench in 1 or 2 of those games, maybe the ceiling is high enough because he does have good data. He's been starting pretty much every game. Darwin scoring.
I think that's my thought process as well. But more from a protection against triple captaincy.
Mm-hmm.
I do have that slot removing Haaland. Mm-hmm. So by getting Gakpo, I do give myself something without having like another attacker, just because but I don't have that triple captaincy chip. I get something out of the attack if Liverpool go crazy. So that's the rationale that I have behind getting one other Liverpool attacker. And I think you're right. Choosing another attacker, I would go Gakpo as well.
Cool. And if we look at the graph on the right, I had to also readjust this scale, but that was because Salah was so off the charts. He's just getting almost 1.5 returns per game and 1.1 XGI per game. And clearly Jota is someone who's very interesting, but it's unfortunate that he's always unfit or his game time is at question. But otherwise, he's kind of similar to Palmer and Saka. And then there's like a big cluster where everyone else is. Nkunku has very high XGI as well, but he doesn't get enough game time. And I think there's not too much between the other options. Like you said, look at the fixtures, look at who's likely to play, because like people like Bruno or Brennan Johnson, Maddison, KDB, Gordon, Foden, like depending on price and fixtures, I think you can play around with them. But yeah, clearly Salah, Palmer, and Saka when he was fit were the...
I can't wait for him to get fit again because I need somewhere to spend this money, and he's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely affected Arsenal a bit as well. They ended up drawing last week in the last minute. But let's move on to defenders because we spoke about and like if you look at this, the top four players are all Liverpool defenders. The other alternative we spoke to Gakpo is probably someone like a Van Dijk or a Konate or maybe even an Alisson. And I do see like some merit in it because the next four fixtures are all potentially clean sheet fixtures. You know they're gonna play. They do have some goal threat. So yeah, that is also something I'm considering. But yeah, I think Gakpo is a little more exciting. If you look at the graph on the right, you'll see that this is a bit more well distributed graph where the returns are all over the place, but XGI is kind of the variance in XGI is not much. Trent is the standout clearly, both in terms of returns and XGI. And Anthony Robinson, in terms of returns, is a bit of an outlier, getting more than 0.4 attacking returns a game. That's amazing at his price.
I think he'll be the perfect Robinson replacement if Liverpool want to buy a left back. He is so good, and it's been really fun owning him. I think getting that budget defense of Robinson, Hall, these guys have been great.
And look at where Robertson is on this chart. Like his XGI per 90 is higher than Robinson's, but he has 0 returns somehow. 0 goals, 0 assists, which is pretty sad thing to see given at his heyday, like he was such a exciting player in FPL. I thought
he seems tailor-made. Robinson seems tailor-made for Liverpool. Perfect Robinson replacement.
And I thought that this is one graph I was interested in comparing the budget defenders, like your Holy Trinity, for example, Robinson, Lewis Hall, and Munoz. So it looks like Robinson and Hall are getting the returns, but Munoz is actually the one who's been so threatening. Like even when you watch him play, he seems so exciting. Maybe the returns will come for him. He does have like 0.2 returns per game, but I think that could be like with good fixtures that could really improve.
Yeah. Interesting to see that Gabriel is not, I mean, from an XGI perspective, it doesn't show up in above that chart, above that line. So I would expect Gabriel kind of show up similar to Trent in this line.
I think this year he has converted more than normal. That's one thing, and yeah, maybe his goal threat isn't as much as it used to be because he's below 0.2 XGI. Usually he's around 0.3. With defenders, there's not too much difference in it. So one return here and there can really drastically change where they lie on the x-axis at least. But in terms of y-axis, anything above 0.2 is a really good XGI for a defender. And in terms of the other projections, Hall still features pretty highly. So I wouldn't sell Hall this week. Southampton next, and then the Arsenal defenders, Gabriel, Saliba, Timber, and Saliba if he's fit, and then Kirkes. He got a goal last week, and he's a good option as well. Anything else on the defenders?
No, I think we covered. We spoke about Liverpool, Arsenal, Hall still doing good, and some of the budget defenders. So
cool.
Go ahead.
And then the goalkeepers. No table, no graph here because it's basically the team graph. But yeah, Alisson and Pickford, the standouts. I think in the next couple of weeks, I'll probably bring Pickford in for Henderson going into the double game week, just to get an extra player. They have a Leicester game as well. But yeah, apart from that, I don't think there's any other players who you should be considering right now.
I can't wait to get rid of Sanchez. He's leaving as a part of my mini wildcard. So this table is pretty interesting for me because heavily under scrutiny over the next 1 week.
Yeah, if you are interested in a double game week keeper and then maybe you want to make another move, I'm not sure. But otherwise, probably Alisson or Pickford will be the standout options.
Yeah, I do also want to just take a look at the blanks coming up. Because keeper is always that position where you always have a backup plan for these blanks because I don't have two playing keepers. So that's something I do need to factor in as well.
Yeah, I think the second leg of the EFL Cup will give us some more information. But as of now, it probably looks like Newcastle and Palace may blank. And the Liverpool and Spurs game is hanging on a knife's edge. Spurs have 1-0 lead, so that's a little more unpredictable. But yeah, I think that maybe just try keeping optimizing your team for the current state and then choose the best chip strategy based on how things turn out instead of trying to hope for a certain set of games to fall in
Yeah, I
place.
think if Liverpool blank, then getting Allison is a bit of a pain because I won't have a keeper for that week, and I need to sort that out.
Yeah, I think yeah. In my case, I'm Fabianski is back and he's playing, so I'm hoping that worst case he will have a fixture. Um, but yeah, I think we can wait on this decision. Cool. Let's go into the teams now. AIT made a transfer just before we started recording, and interestingly, it's Wood to Wissa. So it finally says bye to its darling child. And Wissa is the player who comes in ahead of his. I think the Palace away game is a bit of a tricky one, but after that, things get easier. And Salah captain. Rogers is first on the bench. I may have played him over Pedro. But defense looks good. Van Dijk, Trent, and Hall. Cells in defense. I think midfield looks great. And the attack, like we said, just go with whoever has good fixtures. And these three fixtures seem decent. Even the first bench option is pretty good. I think team's looking good this week.
Yeah, looks very good. If City were actually playing well, I would bench Palmer for Rodgers, but City are pretty weak defensively this season, so it still makes sense to play him.
Yeah, I absolutely. And Palmer, I mean, against City, I think he'll have a point to prove as well, looking at where he is and where they are in the league right now. But yeah, good position at 3.6k going into this week. Moving on to my team.
I guess like the other thing that I would do differently here, Palmer, we spoke about Eze for Rodgers. Maybe I would play Rodgers over Eze. Just because West Ham are much worse than Brentford. Brentford are a pretty decent team, and Crystal Palace attack, as we have seen, doesn't show up promising in data.
Yeah, interestingly, Brentford's defense also shows up as pretty bad. So maybe maybe Eze as a player has more marquee name.
And weighs more points, probably.
Yeah. But actually, the other transfer, which was the second most optimal transfer, was Eze to Mbeumo. So it actually is, I think, pretty done with Eze. He wasn't in the top 10 projections either. It's just that the Wood to Wissa move was more optimal. Okay, moving on to my team. So I did make a move. Like I said, Solanke was injured and I wanted to get rid of, and I wanted to get in a double game week player. So I got Calvert-Lewin in after everything that we discussed. And I also got rid of Lewis Hall, who I said we shouldn't get rid of, for Virgil van Dijk. So I think the thinking for me was, if there was any thinking, I did spend almost every day this week pondering over it. So it was either going to be Gakpo or Calvert-Lewin coming in. If I got Calvert-Lewin, it allowed me to get that defense that I wanted, and I'll only play him in the double game week and get rid of him after that. He's just going to be my 8th attacker, and Rogers having a good fixture this week allowed me to do that. I wish I didn't have to make this move this week, but Solanke was dropping in price, and Hall rose. I'm very scared that I sold Hall, but I think he was gonna go in a couple of weeks anyway, and I feel this week Van Dijk with Ipswich at home. I know Hall can get attacking returns, but I feel that I want that block of Ipswich Wolves double game week to be giving myself the best chance of Liverpool scoring points. I just wish Solanke didn't get injured because he had Leicester at home and I wouldn't have to make a stupid move like this, and I could have decided on something later. But yeah, now I've made my bed.
Yeah, as much as of a horror it is seeing Calvert-Lewin again in these sheets, the scarier part is maybe actually selling Hall, because Southampton is that little bit of a whipping boy team and he can get returns. But given you're looking forward with Virgil, I think that's completely reasonable.
Yeah, and another minor point where I sold Hall. So I watched the game. He didn't play so well, and then Trippier came on for him after a long time, and he played pretty well. I don't think Hall's going to be dropped given the season he's having, but I was like, let me just get Van Dijk. The only thing is it kind of locks me out of the assistant manager chip. I don't think you can have 3 players and assistant manager. So if like suddenly I want to play that chip, it won't be easy for me. But yeah, I didn't want to sell Gabriel because after the City game, again, he has a good run of fixtures. And Semenyo is also someone I want to keep. His games become easy again. So it had to be Hall in the end, which is a little scary, but I feel like I thought it through. Somehow getting Calvert-Lewin and selling Hall was where I landed up.
This is why we love FPL.
Yeah, like I remember how long it took me to sell him last time, and like he's back in the team, stinking up the bench again. Um, but hopefully he returns the favor. And yeah, the main reason was now I already have Mikolenko on my bench, and going into the double game week, I can do Henderson to Pickford and play 6 players. I know Everton, not too much to expect, but Leicester at home, I have some strong hopes, and I'm setting myself up for a heartbreak. Cool. Moving on to your team.
No changes again to this team. Want to really get to that 5 free transfer to make a lot of changes next week. I think again it looks okay. Like I'm playing Robinson over Munoz because
Yeah.
I think as we saw, he's just a really good player. On data, he's really good. I don't think United at home is particularly very difficult as such. Whereas for Munoz, although he's good, I think the Brentford at home may be a slightly more difficult game for Palace. So I feel more comfortable playing Robinson, mainly because I feel Robinson is better than Munoz. And
Yeah.
United at home, Brentford at home, equating it to kind of similar difficulty as fixtures. Sanchez with City away is very uninspiring, but he's just been pretty awful throughout, so don't expect much there. But otherwise, okay, captaining Salah, playing Rodgers. Hopefully Haaland can... I don't know if I want to hope for Haaland to score a lot in this game, but actually I don't care. He can blank for all it's worth. Like, what's the point of like scoring in this game?
Can go to 25th in our league table.
Yeah. So... yeah, nothing to look forward to this week, honestly. I'm just captaining Salah like almost everyone else. I'm going to reevaluate whether there's something I can do different with captaincy. Maybe I'll think about Isaac.
Yeah, but I think next week onwards it'll be a bit exciting for you with all the possibilities. When do you ever have 5 free transfers to make and you're not on wildcard or free hit? Like the possibilities are endless with chip strategy and...
As needed with selling Haaland. Like,
yeah.
I mean, Enzo's getting out of the team. Sarr is getting out of the team. Sanchez is getting out. I have so many players I just want to throw out fast.
It's like a superpower. I mean, it's a chip of its own. I think having 5 free transfers and knowing you're going to sell Haaland is like an exciting spot to be in.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that brings us to the end of this week's episode. Do like, share and subscribe if you like that video. And for some great advice, like where we tell you to not get Calvert-Lewin and then we do it to ourselves. Any last words, Vikas?
Best of luck to everyone, and hope you all get a good green arrow and jumps to positions not 25th.